My name's Tasha Clares. I'm going to be your moderator for today's panel. Very excited to be here. I'll give you a quick little background on myself. I work for a cybersecurity company who services the federal government, so you're probably like, why is she here? However, technology, cloud, communications, everything you guys are going to be hearing this week is things that evolve around what we do every day. So I'm excited to announce the panel we're going to have around Marketing 360 View. So without further ado, everyone knows they're in marketing session, right? Okay, just make sure you're in the right place. So we have Catherine Rose, Senior Advisor at Achieve Unite. And just a few minutes, we're going to turn it over to each of them to tell us a little bit about themselves. We have Irfan Fazlullah. Did I say that correctly? Okay. With Vonage. He's the Director of Marketing Partnerships and Strategy. And we also have Gina Kennedy-Torrey, Vice President of Marketing at Fusion. So welcome our amazing panel. I'm really excited to hear all of the awesome things they have to say. So really quickly, before we start our Q&A and all the things we're gonna talk about, why don't you guys each tell us a little bit about yourselves? So Catherine?
Sure, hi, I'm Catherine Rose, and as Tasha mentioned, I'm a senior advisor with Achieve Unite. We are a performance partnering organization that helps vendors through providing strategy, programs, and training to build profitable partnerships. I have a long career in sales and marketing, and I'm really excited to be able to share any insights with all of you today.
Irfan?
Hi, I'm Irfan Fazlullah, the Director of Marketing Partnerships and Strategy. I have a very interesting role at Vonage, leading our channel marketing efforts and also crafting the go-to-market strategies for a lot of our strategic partners, including AWS and Google. And these two roles really interplay with each other very smoothly and in ways that have benefits both for both of our partners and for our strategic partners as well. Channel marketing has been a very interesting role for me, and coming from a rich experience of a marketing consulting background, it has been enlightening to work and apply a lot of the principles that I was able to put and deploy for distributed sales organizations to a very macro distributed field, which is the channel at large. Each day you get to work with a myriad of partners, and a lot of the success that I have seen from a channel marketing perspective has been when we were able to apply a lot of the demand generation principles that companies typically reserve for their direct sales approaches in a way that is both scalable and flexible for our partners. So it's really heartening to see that we have a marketing session and we have such great attendance, and I can't wait to share some exciting ideas with this group.
Wonderful, thank you, Irfan. And finally, we have Gina Kennedy-Torrey.
Hi, I'm Gina Kennedy-Tony.
Tony.
That's okay, Tony Torrey, that's fine. I'm the Vice President of Marketing for Fusion. Been in the industry, I like to say, since I was 2, so a long time. I was talking today at the Partner Advisory Board. I remember my earliest show I remember is 2001, so have done this for a little while. Fusion is a cloud solutions company. We like to say the single source for the cloud. We do cloud computing, cloud communications, cloud connectivity. You know, I was saying in the meeting today, we like to say, you know, some people like to say one throat to choke. I like to say one back to pat, right, and be positive about it, hopefully. But we've been around for over 20 years. We're publicly held on NASDAQ. Probably the most recent news that you've heard about us is that we are acquiring a little company called Birch. I'm sure you've all heard of them. So we are in the middle of regulatory requirements for that and getting ready to make that announcement soon. So very excited, very focused on that right now. And just love marketing and did come from, I think you mentioned also a little bit of a sales background. So I think that's definitely given me some insight as to what sales folks need. And like you mentioned, we really have noticed a lot of our partners don't have the resources to have marketing teams, and by teaming with them and helping them and giving them the same ideas and the same solutions that we do for our direct team, as you said, we've really found a lot of traction with partners. So we're anxious to help them and you know, help them market to their bases and monetize their base of customers. So hopefully some of you here today, we can help you with some of those ideas that we've all done together.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gina. So really quick, before we jump into the questions that we have prepared, I want to do a quick audience poll. So how many of you in the audience are with a vendor or an OEM? You have something that your product you sell, solution you sell? Not that many? Really? Okay, how many of you guys are a reseller? You resell those of another partner? Oh, okay. More than I thought, so that's good. We just want to make sure that the message that we're talking to you guys about today resonates with you. Any integrators, service providers, MSPs? So pretty good mix. Okay, so just want to make sure you guys understand that as we get started. So a lot of what we're going to talk about today is about how the channel marketing has evolved over the years, and now we're faced with shrinking marketing budgets, the MDF allocations are lessening, ROI demands, resource constraints, whether that be people or time or energy and effort, as we all know to be true. So I'm going to start off with talking about some tools that are typically provided by vendors to help resellers and to help other folks achieve marketing success. And so I'd like to hear your thoughts, and we'll start with Catherine on this one. I'd like to hear your thoughts on those OEM-provided tools we call sort of campaign in a box, or the initiatives that are provided by the OEM to share with the partners for their initiatives, like email workflows, web plugins, social media. What is your thoughts on all that? Does that work?
Yeah, so I have an interesting perspective because I actually sold marketing automation systems for the channel for many years. And honestly, it's one of those situations where I think we all believed in that idea of if you build it, they will come. And we provided these programs to the partners and thinking it's a magic pill, so to speak, that if we provide email marketing automation, social media automation, that it would get used. There's a couple of different challenges with that, and from the Achieve Unite perspective, we see that their partners are really bucketed into 3 areas: the do-it-yourselfers, do-it-with-me's, and do-it-for-me's in terms of marketing. And unfortunately, for the marketing automation challenges, is most of the channel is the do-it-for-me, right, or do-it-with-me's. And so we really need to be able to support those partners in the best way. So it can work, but it has to be for the right partners. The other challenge is training. You have to provide the training support for the folks to be able to use these tools properly, and they also have to have marketing people inside to be able to use them. So it can work for the right partners, but it's not that magic pill that's going to really help them. The other challenge we see is that partners don't want to market you as a vendor. They want to market their own solutions and solution sets and products. So marketing automation's really built, or at least originally it was built around the idea that partners want to go to market with you. And today that's not necessarily true as things have evolved.
Great, Irfan, I know you have some thoughts on that as well. So you have a solution in place like that probably for your partners to use, I imagine.
Absolutely. I mean, very early on, we realized that all of these tactics are great, but the problem here, more often than not, stems from the fact that the tactics define the strategy rather than being guided by the strategy, and the other way around. So, I mean, I think it's really up to the supplier company to ensure that they are designing these programs first from a more strategic perspective, that they understand the partner landscape that they have, and through them, the markets that these partners are serving. And every partner, every market, every customer is different, and every different customer requires a different selling approach. So it's extremely important to align. First, start from a very strategic perspective when you're putting together these programs that your partners can deploy, making sure that your partners understand what the strategy and what sales approach it is supporting, and ensuring that they don't just understand the strategy, but are equipped with the right tools and the right resources to deploy those strategies. At Vonage, we are increasingly moving towards a solution that we call a twist on the campaign in a box. We call it demand generation in a box. And it's more about ensuring that right from the point of defining the strategy to defining the content mix that supports the strategy, and packaging it in a myriad of ways, each way supporting a separate solution, customer solution, a separate sales approach. And when you do that, then when partners are aligned on the strategy, and they are then able to, with precision, pick the campaign that is suited to their market, their sales needs, their customers' needs. And then it's a matter of ensuring and having the discussion with them to make sure that they have the right tools, not just to deploy them, but to track and optimize them. Optimization is the key, but as long as you start from a strategic perspective, you should be covered.
That's great. So it sounds like you work with your partners to define that. You don't just give them the tool and hope
No.
they figure it out. So you're hand in hand. Anything you want to add?
No, I think it's the same. I think, the message is it's not one for all, and as you mentioned, and I think the other thing is the training is key, and we even go as far as for certain partners, we will actually put someone with them to come in and train them on using the marketing automation tools or different programs. We still call it Campaign in a Box. We send out something every Tuesday called our Tuesday Toolbox that gives our partners some things that they can use. But I would agree with both, that it's training, it's knowing your audience, making sure you're setting them up with what they need. They don't necessarily just want to market your product either. They want to market themselves as consultants, really.
Right. Well, coming from a reseller myself, I can attest to that.
Yes.
So along the lines of campaigns, I'd love to hear if you guys could share one, maybe two, whatever sticks out in your mind as an example, good case study of a partner that you've worked with that used their MDF dollars effectively and ran a really good campaign that you'd like to share with the audience.
You want to start me?
Sure. Irfan, you can.
So I have an interesting example that's actually from the first half of 2017. And that sort of was the kind of the aha moment for us in terms of understanding the potential of solutions-based selling and equipping partners with that approach and kind of see what the demonstrable results are. So Vonage is in a unique position from a platform perspective because of the combined UCaaS and CPaaS solution we offer. And we have been going to our partners not from a perspective understanding that this is a very robust set of communication tools, and this is how it can help your customers in different scenarios and for different use cases. And we have always been on point in terms of demonstrating how those tools can be combined and the flexibility that they have. So we had a very long-standing partner in the Midwest who came to us with a request for an MDF in the first half of last year. And they had been trying for months to kind of break into the vertical market. They were really committed from a platform and product perspective to Vonage, but were still not sure as to what's the best way to break into the market. And they got a lead list from their region, and they came to us with a request for MDF to kind of support, to create a campaign. But we wanted to move away from just allocating budgets based on partner revenue potential. And we sat down with the partner, and in discussions with the partners, we were able to uncover something that was really interesting. So we were able to figure out why the finance vertical was big in that market. And as we got into the data of the segment data that was available in the market, it became apparent that even within the finance vertical, there was a very small but significant subset of regional banks, a mix of credit unions and other regional banks that had a very specific need and a specific problem that they did not have a right solution for. And it was in the conferencing and collaboration area. So even though if we had just awarded the MDF, it would have been a Vonage message. It would have been about business communications and just leading in with a very broad message. But because we were able to get into the weeds of the data, we were able to talk with this partner and craft a very targeted message aimed at those regional banks that played on the sense of value. So the lead-in message was value, and then features, and then convenience. So the partner was able to go to this market and apply the MDF funds in a very targeted way with very rich media content, including videos, specifically talking about the conferencing and collaboration aspect of our solution, and then nurturing that market with the rest of the value from the platform. And that resulted in a lot of opportunity generation. The partner experienced a 50 to 75% lift both in the opportunity and the conversion stages, just purely on the value play, because those banks were really paying a lot of money for enterprise-grade tools that were bundled and included at no additional cost in the platform. So this is a great example of using the understanding of the market, and then leveraging a specific solution within the vendor as the lead-in message to grow that market.
Great. So it was some non-traditional marketing because they use their MDF for some data analytics, some data mining, some specific content marketing that they
Yes.
created, right? So they didn't necessarily come to you and say, we want to do all these events and we want to show up here and we want to do this, but they really thought about how they wanted to message their customer and
Absolutely.
create a unique value to them. And it sounds like it was all based around the problem the customer had, not the features and benefits of your solution.
Absolutely, and it's important. It's important that the supplier is in lockstep with the partner in each stage. Obviously, everybody, both suppliers and partners have marketing resource constraints, but I think just with the right guidance, with the right set of tools, you are able to kind of expand upon it and make sure that the partners are set up for success.
And Catherine, you want to add something?
Yeah, and I think what we try to really work on at Achieve is exactly what he was talking about, was really working hand in hand with the partner on these solutions. It's been my experience, again, from that 50,000-foot view, working with a lot of vendors, that they've even tried to commoditize or automate their MDF programs. So there's all these pre-built packages. And just as marketing automation tools, one size doesn't fit all, also MDF programs. So that's a really unique use case, but it's one that I would encourage the vendors in the room to really think through. How can we support more of that one-on-one? Because typically, or at least in the past, MDF has been the accrual basis, and it usually goes to the partners who need the help the least, right? They usually have a lot of their own budget. So that's a very unique perspective, and it sounds like it went really well.
And Gina, I know you have lots of experience with MDF, so do you have a...
Yeah, I mean, two different sides of the MDF, I think, is the MDF dollars that we receive from folks, Microsofts of the world and the Polycoms and some of those folks, how we use those to grow our partners' business. We kind of have a unique program that we ran with a partner who was interested in actually hiring a call center, if you will, to make outward bound calls to sell Azure, a Microsoft product. So we were able to get dollars from Microsoft, use those dollars to work with that partner on buying lists and actually hiring. He actually had an internal staff that was kind of a call center, but we were able to do some funding there and help him grow that way, which was something very unique that we hadn't been able to do. The other thing I'd like to say about MDF coming from the other way, and I don't know if you're going to cover that, but receiving MDF dollars is there's so many creative things that you can do besides just the standard. A lot of people want to do events, and I want to have a cocktail reception, and I want to give away cupcakes, and I mean, I've heard so many. I want to have an ice cream social in the basement of this, business. One of the coolest things that I think we were able to do with one of our big folks, it was Microsoft, was at an event just like this. We were able to get tools that were state-of-the-art, touch screen, big, and really add to the booth and make it more interactive for our partners to learn more about our products. So some of those things partners have now requested when they go to events and they go to things where they're actually, showing what they do, is how can we use some of those marketing funds for some of that same stuff, right? So how can we do what you did? And I think that was one of the coolest uses of marketing dollars that I've seen besides, like I said, a cocktail reception or a Top Golf or I think in ball game. I think in marketing we've pretty much done all those. I can see Callie's yes, right? We've done it all. I can't think of any more creative ones to do, but yes.
Yeah, and I would urge people, too, to think a little bit more outside the box. So you might think that the OEMs are going to approve the more traditional things like events and whatnot. But to be quite honest, from my experience, being on the side of a company that receives MDF, and we don't receive MDF based on performance, which is something we're going to talk about here in a minute, but we do receive based on proposals that we put together for those manufacturers to show them, here's the campaigns that we're going to run, and here's what we expect in return, and here are our metrics, and here's how we're going to sell more of your business, would be to think about content marketing and to think about data analytics and think about the things that you don't necessarily perceive them to approve as a marketing activity, and you'd be surprised if you put together a really thoughtful plan. Absolutely. So while we're on the topic of MDF, because I know there's been a lot of changes over the years, and I know all of you probably have thoughts on this. So we'll leave this one a little bit broad. But if you had a crystal ball, what do you see as the future of MDF programs? And I ask that because, well, one thing, Irfan, you said that you guys yourselves are moving away from allocating budgets based on size of revenue and moving towards other models. So can you elaborate on what you think the future of MDF looks like?
Yeah, but first I wanted to just set the record straight. Cupcakes work. Yeah, I think they have been one of our most popular programs. Whenever we, especially from a nurture perspective. So anyway, moving away from cupcakes, I think there is certainly a transformation happening in terms of where MDFs are and where they need to go. I mean, the conventional issues of a lot of MDFs go wasted, depending upon the size of the company, and sometimes millions of dollars of MDFs go wasted, or there is no oversight in terms of how MDFs are used, so they never drive the right results. That drives a lot of frustration both for partners and then for suppliers alike. But to really understand where MDFs are going and where they need to be, you really need to understand. I think we need to just take a step back, and I think there is a fundamental shift that is happening in terms of where product and sales strategy overall is going. And I think, and we were just talking about this before the panel, and this has been said for a very long time in the channel that there needs to be more solutions-based selling. But I think as the business matures more in the cloud, and then there is a lot of juxtaposition between your pure technology-based cloud providers and then telecommunication companies that are in the cloud, such as Vonage, and then you have the mix of both traditional agents and then VARs and MSPs and SIs, and the line between the two is increasingly growing by the day. One thing that is absolutely clear, though, particularly those that have been delaying the change from a more transactional-based sales model, is that they're increasingly coming across, from a customer perspective, a business that wants to know, doesn't really care that much about the product, but more about how it's meeting their needs. Mm-hmm. And specifically those that are coming through the partners, they want to know what is the value the partner is adding in meeting that need and deploying that solution. They want to know that, they want to be assured that whatever the partner is proposing has been curated, is the right solution for their business, is reliable, dependable, and scalable. Right? Yeah. So, and they don't want to go to different vendors to craft a single solution. So partners are increasingly trying to, it is in the best interest to work with suppliers that have the broadest set of capabilities, that allow them the flexibility of creating solutions that meet a very broad array of customer needs in their market. And the more that they can consolidate that into a single solution, single platform, or a single supplier, or a few suppliers, even for that matter, the more scalability and flexibility they have. Now, going back to the question, MDFs need to get aligned in the same way. They cannot be dictated by partner-defined tactics. Although there always needs to be healthy discussion between the partner and the supplier, but the supplier needs to work harder to make sure that they first start in terms of understanding the partner's business, their goals, their objectives, and they're packaging their solution, and via the solution, they're aligning their MDF programs with strategies and tactical mixes to support those strategies. So I think that's where MDFs are going to be. They need to be aligned very closely against partner, customer, solution needs, market needs, and those programs cannot be dictated by, because it's very common for you to come across MDF brochures that say email marketing, $10,000, yes. Landing pages, webinars, events are $15,000. So we are almost forcing the partners to choose based on a specific tactic, and we're never really starting from a strategy perspective. Versus it needs to be more about, is your goal to adopt a vertical-based approach for targeting certain verticals like healthcare or finance? Then here's the category of MDFs, and this is the kind of budget, and this is the recommended tactical mix for that budget. So I think MDFs need to evolve there. At Vonage, we are already trying to move there, and I think you will see that the industry at large will be forced to go there as well.
No, I think that's great. Catherine? I know you have lots of thoughts.
Yeah, so we spend a lot of time on this particular topic at Achieve Unite working with vendors, and we look at it as it needs to evolve from an MDF program into partner investment funds. And one of the challenges I think too is for vendors to overcome is that just because someone has a pulse doesn't mean that it could be a good partner, right? So you have to be much more selective and discerning when you're putting together the right partners. So it doesn't become this broad-based MDF where folks can come and just take a piece here and a piece there. And as you were saying about the different programs, it's being more prescriptive with those dollars for the right partners. So we really focus on it morphing into that more partner investment funds, really working together with the partners. I know it sounds a little laborious and it's going to take time, but it will definitely return the rewards that you want if you spend the time to do that.
Yeah. And it is laborious. I mean, I think it takes a lot of time, but I also think, by saying that, and this kind of goes back to our original discussion, all partners, I mean, everybody wants the same, everybody. And if you just base it on revenue and you don't kind of soften those edges, and if you just say, if you're a partner and you sell X number of dollars with us, you get this many marketing dollars, you have to soften those edges and not definitely set definitive terms always. You have to have a way to manage it. And to your point earlier, you have to be able to manage the results, right? You have to, that partner, you need to be able to manage if it's working, right? If you're getting bang for the buck. But you can't put every partner into a square peg in a round hole and say, you get $300 and you get $300 and you get $300 for every 1,000 you sell, and it has to be more wide open. And I'm hoping that the partners that we get MDF funds from, that we share with our partners, I know it's confusing partner to partner, but that everybody's a partner. I hope that they'll too start to do that approach, because we do see a lot of key players out there that we count on those MDF funds that are strictly revenue driven. So I would like to see a little more laxed, if you will, for lack of a better term, approach with MDF funds.
Yeah, and I can give you a real life example. So the company I work for, excuse me, we were acquired 2 years ago by a large enterprise reseller, and they were, they worked with some big product manufacturers. And so a lot of the MDF that we get, or some of the partners that we get MDF from, it's not based on revenue, but it's based on submitting proposals to these manufacturers and having a really, thorough, thought through marketing strategy, as Irfan was talking about. And the company that acquired us was about a $2 billion company. And my company at the time was a $350 million company. And we were getting equally the same amount of MDF from one manufacturer that we both were targeting in that market. But it didn't matter how big they were. They didn't have a very strategic marketing approach, and they weren't providing value with their metrics, and they didn't have a strategy in place. So I think it's not so much if you don't ask for it, you won't get it, but have you really put the thought into your marketing plan and strategy to do that? So it can happen. And I would agree with the likes of a lot of money gets left on the table, I think, a lot of times, where those partners are getting it just because they're selling a lot of revenue, but maybe they're selling a lot of revenue because it's a commodity sale or it's transactional, and they're not really a strategic initiative for that company. And therefore, the supplier doesn't necessarily invest in knowing what that partner, how they want to go to market, and working with them to do so.
Well, the market used to be that the vendor was in control of the relationship, really. And now everything is flipped. It's the end user who's really in control. They want these business solutions that you bring, that bring to them, and the closest person to them is the partner. So that's really where you need to be investing the dollars.
And partners, I mean, we just talked about this, and I keep pointing to you because we just got out of the same meeting, but we just talked about, on the channel advisory board, what we're seeing more of is, years ago, again, back when I was 2 or 3 and I used to attend these, it was, what we would see more of is agents, right? And folks were, they were telecom agents, right? And that's what they called themselves, telecom agents. And now we're seeing so much more of people going to that more consultative approach, where we're a consultant, we're one-stop shopping. we take care of it all. And I think that's important to look at too when you're creating these marketing plans and putting together these MDF fund plans. These folks want to be more consultative. They don't want to just sell this in this box. They want to sell the right thing for their customer. And I think, you have to look at them more holistically that way.
Right, and back to the end user, they don't care who it is they're getting
No.
it from, right?
Technology for technology's
No.
sake, and they don't buy it specifically from you. So we see it as, looking more toward the convergence of vendors working together to provide solutions for the partners to market versus I'm just going to market this vendor and this vendor and this vendor. So.
Right, and Catherine, we were talking about this earlier, but why don't you elaborate for a minute on your win-win-win-win-win principle?
Well, we really believe very strongly in collaborative selling and collaborative, relationships because we see that it's so important to really preserve, promote, and protect the partner relationship. And so it really needs to be a win-win-win. So when you provide the right solutions to the end user, there's a win. You provide the right support to the partner, there's a win. Investing in their business, they'll sell more of you. So there's a win for the vendor as well.
Right, well, that's great. So now we're going to kind of shift gears a little bit. And we can still bring up MDF if you want, but I know everyone's probably tired of hearing about that. Now, this is a little bit more of an exciting topic with regards to marketing, and that has to do with how the landscape is evolving. So those of you who have been marketers for many, many years have seen tremendous changes in how people go to market with the digital age, social, everything is changing. How people consume information is changing. I wish I had the most recent statistics to share with you because it's astounding at how people are consuming information today. So I would challenge all the panelists to think about, as marketers must adapt their skill sets to adapt with the change of the market, what's a role that you feel, give an example of one role you feel every marketing organization should have or should seek to have in the future, big or small? And then coupled with that, what is maybe one skill set that marketer should have in their tool belt or someone on your team should have that maybe isn't traditionally something marketing has today?
I think the first thing is, Marketing 101 always tells us, what isn't measurable doesn't count, right? I think every marketing organization needs to have somebody who ties the spend back to the dollar. And I'm going to tell you, sometimes it's pure hell to get that done, because how do you say, okay, we came to this event and we had 50 people stop by here and we had 27 meetings, and how do you tie that event and the spend for that event all the way back to the dollars that were spent when somebody buys something? So I think you have to really have a person that's dedicated to, or a partner that helps you with this there's several tools that help with that, right? But you have to be able to tie the dollar spend back to the lead source. And I think every marketing team has to have an analytics person, which is absolutely not me in this case, but an analytics person that can do that. And I think that's the most important job. We can all be great writers and great orators and great, all these things and have the best social media. But if it doesn't bring the company in any money, then my CEO gets angry, right?
And talking a little bit more about that too, it's not just tying the tweet to the sale, it's more about analyzing the data to figure out what is actually resonating, what messaging is resonating, because one of the things is, we were talking about the skill that you think is missing, so the data analysis is extremely important because those are the folks that are going to tell you, these emails worked or these didn't, and write more of this content. But one of the skills I said that it's kind of a lost art in some ways is copywriting. Because I see so much messaging out there that's still about us, what we provide, what we do, and it needs to be changed over into how it helps the customer. So a good copywriter will be able to take the messaging and the programs and products and services that you offer and flip it over to the value of the customer. So then you'll be able to get more opens, more clicks, more downloads, and then be able to turn that into dollars.
And to be nimble enough to say, we may think we ran the greatest campaign in the world, right? And the analytics came back and we thought it was great that we were giving away free toasters if you did this, whatever you're giving away, cupcakes, toasters, whatever that is. And, if you can't, you have to be able to measure that. You have to be able to come back to that, and you have to be able to be nimble enough to say, you know, the toaster campaign did not work. People don't want toasters, you know, they want cupcakes or whatever it is that they want, right? And you have to be able to have copywriters that can step away from their ego and say, wow, I thought that was really cool, but it didn't work, right? And analytics comes in there too. So.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think we are in an increasingly data-driven business world, and when your customers' businesses are so much relying on data, then partners need to make sure that how they serve those customers and how they reach those customers needs to be completely backed by data as well. But I do want to highlight a nuance here, and this is something that is incredibly easy to preach, but equally difficult to actually practice, which is if you go a layer down into the world of analytics. I think a key there in the analytic worlds, which a lot of not just partners but also large enterprises out there that include suppliers struggle to do, is to align the learnings from both sales performance analytics and marketing performance analytics in a way that is both agile and nimble, and allows you to kind of optimize your efforts continually. It really boils down to using sales analytics to develop a macro understanding of customer behaviors, and then ensuring that your marketing performance kind of tracks against those customer behaviors, but in a more micro campaign performance perspective. I guess I'm speaking a little bit of a lot of analytics here, but I mean, it simply boils down to ensuring that your sales data allows you to paint a great picture of what your best customer looks like, or your most successful customer looks like, and translating that and as kind of the baseline foundation for tracking your marketing performance, and ensuring that those are the kind of customers that your campaigns, your efforts are reaching successfully. So.
Yeah, it sounds like analytics is key, and I think all of us would agree that that is probably the most important thing, so we know what we're doing and is it successful. And so while we're on the topic of tools and analytics and things like that, I know MarTech is always a big topic of conversation, but the quality of one's MarTech stack is not always tightly aligned. So I'm sure many of you have experience having tools that go underutilized, or having tools maybe you uncovered you didn't even know you had, or maybe having tools that you don't have resources that even know how to use those tools. So by ensuring that those tools are being effectively used, can you guys elaborate on how you handle that in your organization?
Sure. This is one of my favorite topics lately because, you know, we've uncovered, probably like a lot of you, that only 20% of the features and functionality of any of your marketing tools are used. And then sometimes what happens is new people come into the organization, they don't want to use the tools that you have, so they go and find new tools, but no one ever told, you know, the right hand didn't tell the left hand that they got rid of this tool, so they're still paying for it. So there's a new management platform out there. It's called Cabinet M for marketing. And what it does is it allows you to build your marketing stacks and also put your contract data and everything else in there, so you can actually visualize very quickly which programs you have, what they're being used for, and you encourage your entire team, because sometimes you have corporate marketing and channel marketing, and you could perhaps be using some of those channel marketing tools or the corporate marketing tools in channel and vice versa, so you may be double paying for things. So if you encourage the whole organization to come together and keep track of everything inside this one little management platform, it helps a lot to figure out. But again, as you mentioned, Tasha, you know, the training on these things, if you're only using 20% of it, really digging in there, finding someone who's going to spend that time, can I use this program to do other things to be more productive, is important.
Yeah, and I think adoption is half the battle, more than half the battle, to be honest. If you have the tools and they're underutilized, then the likelihood of them renewing those tools and continuing to use them is the biggest key. So we're running out of time, so we're being told to sort of head to the Q&A, so I apologize. We're going to cut that question a little bit short.
Sure.
But before we jump into Q&A, in closing, I just want to share a couple little takeaways that I jotted down. One awesome tool, it sounds like, Cabinet M.
Yeah.
So make sure you guys jot that down and look it up.
Yeah.
A quote I liked that I think we all should take with us regarding analytics is have a macro understanding of behaviors with a micro understanding of performance. So that was, I think, very key in understanding how your customers work together and how we measure that. Flip your messaging on its head. So don't talk about what you do, but how it can help them. And finally, MDF should be a win-win-win approach. So make sure that you're partnering closely with your suppliers and your vendors on that. So the last few minutes, we're gonna jump to Q&A. So Lynn is in the audience right now. If you have any questions, raise your hand. She'll come to you with the mic.
And while you're thinking about your questions, I just want to remind everybody that when this is over, to please return to the 5th floor, to the keynote room for the Business Success Symposium. There's going to be a closing, and then there's going to be a reception. So don't forget to go back there. And please also remember to fill out the papers in front of you, because there's $5 per paper that is donated to the veteran organization that we sponsor. Okay, so questions?
That's fantastic.
There's got to be questions about marketing. All right.
Hey guys, Mark Sadler with CenturyLink. Question for a lot of people talk about trying to capture the value and metrics around different marketing activities, MDF. How successful have you been really getting to an ROI, per different activity or different tactic?
I think my statement on that would be semi-successful, especially around events. That seems to be the hardest thing to track. Around the things like the ball games and all those different things that we do, and there's really an art to that, and I don't think anyone has quite gotten to where they can absolutely tie it back. I mean, we use tools like Salesforce, and we use Marketo to run campaigns out to people that come by our booth, and all those things that a lot of you probably do, and I know you all do. But how do you once I meet, and I'm from the South, so I'm going to say Billy Bob, right, at my booth, and Billy Bob brings on Sally Sue, a customer, right? He's a partner, so he brings on Sally Sue, a customer. How can I track successfully that Sally Sue came from me meeting Billy Bob at Channel Partners 2018 in Las Vegas? Those things are questions that we are constantly asked by our executive management team. We're able to do it through campaigns, through tracking tools, those kind of things. But what we try to say too to that is you have to think of the getting to know who Fusion is, right, or who your company is. There's something to be said for, when I came to the company, and this is not because of me, this is because of a fantastic company, but when I came to the company, think about the name Fusion. It's a car, it's a razor, it's a Sunday school class in my hometown called Fusion, right? And so I was like, well, of course there is. So, it was we really had to work hard on making a name for who we are. And we didn't have to do that. We did that through a lot of events, a lot of road shows, those are hard to track ROI back to, but yet we could start to see in simple things like meeting people, they'd say, oh yeah, I know who Fusion is, right? Where before you work for the car company, right? So sometimes it's not just, the ROI is not just money in your hand, but it's, what's the word I'm looking for? Market awareness. Yes, thank you.
It's, when you look at it, the ROI question always comes up.
Yep.
But where the challenge comes is what is the cost of retaining a customer versus getting a new customer? And you can't really tie those MDF tactics, because most of you want demand generation, right? You want net new. And especially in today's recurring revenue world, it is just as important, if not more important, to retain the customers you already have. So until there's that fundamental shift in the mindset to spend the money on retention, and those ball games can go a long way to building those relationships, then you're not going to see those in the cupcakes, and you're not necessarily going to see the direct ROI, but you will feel it in the negative if you don't start supporting these initiatives.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just one thing I'd add to that. ROI and revenue, that's one thing. That's what every CEO wants to see. That's what every leader wants to see. But when it comes to tying back to your partners, although that's important, I think one thing to keep in mind is ROO, what we like to call return on objectives as well. So if you set forth specific objectives with that partner when you request the MDF dollars or what have you, and you say, our goals are to get this number of this and this number of that and this number of this, then you have clearly defined metrics you can fall back on to return to that after the fact and say, well, we said we were going to try to get this and we exceeded that by X. So set some objectives that, in my business, the sales cycle can be upwards of 3 to 5 years. I mean, so if any of you have experienced that, you're never going to have a quarterly ROI metric that you can send back to them and say, this is how much money we made.
And maybe that objective is something as simple as, I want to drive 200 people to my booth, and I want to have, out of those 200, I want to walk away with 100 good, clean leads that I can market to infinity and beyond, right? I can create a campaign for those. So maybe that's a great point. It's not just.
Part of your question is also from a supplier perspective, right? So you said you're with CenturyLink?
Yeah.
Right. So at the end of the day, it is an indirect sales channel, right? And it's a reason it's called that. There are two ways to look at it. From a pure bottom line perspective, you can measure the impact of all your initiatives in total in terms of the lift that they're bringing to the channel as a whole. But within that, I think the key lies in really extending the trackability attached to both channel marketing as a whole and through partner marketing, specifically in a way that does not stop in a few months. I mean, it has to extend beyond a 6 to 12 month life cycle of a partner getting onboarded to starting to do sales, and ultimately what the revenue impact is at the end of the year. And then going back at the end of the year to the source of the partner recruitment in some ways, if I'm understanding your question correctly.
You had a question here?
Right.
I did. So my question really is, if you have an event, whatever event it was, that maybe you met somebody at, but are you measuring then, okay, they responded to that email, they downloaded that thing that I wrote, they came to one of our other events, a training, a webinar. Are you measuring all those touch points to say, okay, and we finally got them to sign the paper, or we got them to send a customer, or whatever you're
I think the
question, I just wanted to say.
Yeah, so the question is, are you measuring in your sales or your marketing strategy all the different touch points that a lead or that a contact goes through before sales happens? So whether that's opening an email, attending an event, et cetera.
And we, as probably you both, we measure every touch point. Did they download a white paper? Did they read my blog? Did they whatever that is? I think it all depends on. I think that's part of a marketing organization's role when you're with a supplier, right? Is to make sure that the executive management understands that those things are very important also along the way, right? He may not have ever signed the paper, but he opened this, he downloaded this, he got to know your company in this way. He's engaging, or she. I think that's very, very important that
Absolutely.
they're just engaging.
Yes.
And sometimes there's a disconnect, because sometimes your CEO is saying, well, that's great that they're engaging, but are they buying anything, right? And so I think it's important that a marketing organization, you have leadership that can explain that and define that those are objectives. I think that goes back to your original, you have to have things that, I want this many people at my booth, I want this many more soft things that show success.
Because eventually you have a conversion percentage.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
Yes,
That's right.
exactly. Yes.
Yeah, and I don't know what kind of CRM tools you use, but if you use Salesforce, I would urge you to look into, they have like a multi-campaign attribution function. I don't know if it's turned on automatically or if it's something you have to add, but
Marketo, they have
Pardot.
lead scoring,
Pardot.
that's Pardot.
yeah, I
If you
mean,
use
most
any
of the
those,
marketing
yeah.
automation softwares that connect to your CRM allow you to track all those touch points, but I'm
Right.
talking about specifically in the CRM where you have campaigns housed at the highest level, at the sales level. Whether or not they're interacting with them, it's still going to track all of those touch points so that if you needed to pull a report, you could pull it from your sales CRM where the opportunities are actually being recognized and the revenue is happening.
Right. And
Okay. Oh, go
one additional way to do that is when you're doing specifically campaigns with multiple touch points, to very clearly define a specific campaign tag attached to each separate tactic. So they will all be share the same campaign tags. So that way you can know how the campaign is performing as a whole in terms of measuring the overall effectiveness of the campaign. And of course, you can then go a layer deep and say within the campaign which tactics are performing better, and then continue to weed out the ones that are not performing, and then double down on the ones that are performing. So it's important to kind of track it both at a high level as a campaign and then within each tactic.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.